Okay, with this video, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to actually go through videos of me sparring or competing and using the guillotine, kind of exploring how I use the guillotine. So you'll see me use it for takedowns, from the guard, from the top, um, and I just want to kind of explore the way I set it up and what I'm thinking of when I'm going for it and playing with it. Most of these are from rolling with a little bit of competition footage mixed in, and so it's not really super aggressive. Most of the time when I'm rolling, I'm just kind of playing and exploring. So a lot of this, sometimes you may see me just kind of do catch and release. It's me putting myself into positions and seeing how I sort of gravitate towards the guillotine, and this is actually how I discovered or came about playing with it a lot on top, was just actually using it as a way to hold my base on top. And then later I started using it as a way to control, to submit, and to pass. So you'll kind of see me playing around with it, going to different positions and just exploring with it. And hopefully I can give you my mindset, and it'll help you if you want to explore this game. In this first section, you're going to see me cover guillotines, front headlocks, using them for takedowns. This is one of my favorite ways to actually attack takedowns. My primary position is I'm always looking to snap the head down, get to that position. And this actually goes into something you'll see later on. I'm either going to get the front headlock, or they're going to defend by posturing up. When they posture up, I go into the body lock or attack the legs. So it's this catch-22. They've either got to keep their posture up, giving me access to their body, or they've got to try to defend by keeping their posture down, keeping their hips away, which gives me access to, again, the guillotine or the front headlock. This making them choose between two bad things dilemma is a big part of my game and a big part of why I use the guillotine. They're either going to give me head control or they're going to give me body control. You'll see this later. On the ground, I use it for attacking sweeps, and I use it also when I'm on top, attacking my controls. And you'll see that. I'll discuss that as we go on. But here you'll see a couple clips of me using it. I think one in a tournament and a few in class, and the way that I kind of work from that position, a couple different options. In this one, you can see that from the ground, he has his head low. I hit the guillotine. I get my same side foot in and sit under him and basically do just a back roll. When I get to the top, the one thing I'm really worried about, since it was the beginning of the match, and this was a submission only match, so I knew it was going to be time limits, I'm worried about dealing with his explosive power and escaping the position. So what I'm doing is keeping his head crunched up, which stops him bridging, but even more than that, I'm actually trying to keep his feet off the mat. So you see me curling my legs to keep his legs off the mat so he can't bridge. I'm also using this to fatigue him. What he is doing a good job of is keeping me tilted a little bit onto my guillotine arm side so I can't elevate his head and get the submission and the finish that I want. In this next clip, I'm sparring at the academy. I clear the single collar tie off my shoulder, which kind of brings his head down. He already had his head down. I immediately snap to the guillotine and do the same sort of back roll, since he was already bent over, getting my leg underneath. He does a good job this time of keeping me from settling into mount or dropping over to the far side where I can pull him on his side, which is the two positions I generally want to be in. By keeping his legs elevated and kind of keeping me off to the side. So instead, I jump to the same side as the guillotine, which again, I don't really like that much, because if I lose it, it's harder to finish mechanically, and if I lose it, I tend to get my back taken. But here I'm able to keep a tight hold, sit out to the case gatame, and finish this submission. I have a short video of me demonstrating this technique from a different position, but it can be done, as you see here. Here I am in the class, about to start with Sven. He's going to go in for kind of a just a lazy shot. I'm going to step out, go into the front headlock, and now I'm going to switch to a position I really like lately, which is I'm going to circle out, try to go for the leg. A lot of times when I do that, they're going to whizzer me or try to front headlock me back. In this situation, he tried to whizzer me to stop me get the leg, in which case I come up with the underhook. And then I'm going to basically use that underhook as a cow catcher takedown. That's one of my top takedowns, one of my favorite takedowns. I don't think it uses a lot of strength, and it works out pretty well. It also puts me down in a side control position where I can actually start to work my top guillotine game. In this situation, he was doing a good job of trying to keep his back on the mat, and I just abandoned it and go ahead and take side control. But with the cow catcher, since I already had the underhook, I don't even have to worry about him trying to escape. Here's kind of a repeat of the same takedown. I'm going to step out, hook the leg. Notice it's important that, again, he goes for the whizzer and I come up on the underhook. Notice it's important that I get my legs out and kind of behind him. I don't want him stepping his, in this case, left leg outside of mine. So I make sure to keep my leg outside of his, posted and kind of circling off. That's what's going to give me the power to bring him down. And now I'm going to focus on using the guillotine from the guard. Most BJJ people focus predominantly on the guillotine as a weapon from the guard, but as you'll see later, I tend to use it more from the top as a way to control and submit and pass. But I do use it a lot from the guard as well, obviously. It's important to not just view the guillotine as only a submission. I use it to sweep people, actually in multiple directions, and I use the threat of it to give me space to get up, to get to my feet, to come up for wrestle, or to simply keep the opponent from getting control of my hips and buy me time to adjust and stop the passing. In this next clip, you're going to see me working the guillotine from the guard. This was in a Naga, maybe back in like 2006, I think. I was in half guard. I'm going back into a sort of half butterfly with my leg on the outside. It's one of my favorite positions to play because I can use my left hook to sweep them or come over with a right omoplata, depending on which side they put their base. Now, from here, you're going to see one of the things I do, which is he brings his head down in an effort to control my hip so he can start to try to clear over my leg. And as soon as he does, that's when I sit up and hip out a little bit to get the guillotine. Now, I'm not that, this is early on, I'm not so great at the guillotine, or at least getting my grip in exactly the right spot, so see it takes a little while. The other reason is I've got my knee up, my left knee up in between us, making it harder to get on my side and to get underneath him more for a better crunch on the guillotine. The disadvantage, obviously, like I just said, is it's harder for me to finish the guillotine. The advantage, the reason I was doing that was if the guillotine wasn't going to work and he was able to pull his head out, I was going to be able to go back into the sweeping position with a left butterfly hook. So it's kind of a trade-off. I didn't really want to lose the guillotine and be stuck in a half guard. And especially if he reached over my shoulder with his left arm to defend the guillotine, which he did not do. But if he had, that would have been an easy situation for me to hip out onto my right hip, elevate with my left butterfly hook, trap the arm over my shoulder, and come on top. But as you can see, I was able to just finish the guillotine anyway with making some adjustments. In this next clip, you're going to see me attack the guillotine from the guard again, and you're going to see I'm much more comfortable with getting my hands in exactly the right place now, so it takes a lot less time, a lot less effort for me to finish the guillotine. Also, again, you see that I attack basically when he starts to try to control my legs or hips, which allows me to sit up and hunt the neck, and they either have to abandon my hips or they have to deal with the guillotine. A lot of times guys get a little overly confident and don't think that I'm going to be able to finish as easily or as quickly as I can, so they kind of let me attack the neck while they keep trying to work at my legs. One thing I tell my students all the time is that good jiu-jitsu is punishing your opponent when they do the wrong thing, and great jiu-jitsu is punishing your opponent when they do the right thing. So for me, I'm always trying to give my opponents choices, none of which are good. And as much as possible, I try to make those choices opposites. So in this situation, for guillotines, do they bring their head down, which gives me access to their neck, or do they keep their head up, which gives me access to their body? Again, I use this from the top, I use this for takedowns, and I use this from the guard. So a lot of times I'm hunting the guillotine, and if I can get the guillotine, I either have the submission or I have the sweep. And a lot of times it's going to look like I'm getting very easy sweeps because what people will do is they'll keep their posture very upright and their body away from me. And in that situation, I tend to go to a lot of knee taps, come up to my knees and drive them over. So a lot of these will look like the people just kind of gave it to me, but it's because I built this back and forth reaction with them of making them unsure whether to keep their head down or to keep their head up and posture away. And then I just wait for the moment to exploit that. And in this first situation, you're going to see we're playing around a little bit, and I'm able to get over the neck and able to do one of my favorite sweeps. Again, I tell my students what rolls? A ball. So when I get the head, I'm always driving his head directly underneath his body, making it very easy to flip him over and then just come on top. One of the reasons that I'm able to get this back roll sweep or also the back roll takedown so often is because when I catch a front headlock or guillotine, people's first instinct and often first thing they're taught to do is to actually tuck their head and tuck their chin and curl their body in. And this is actually a late defense, not an early defense. What that does is it rounds their body, making it very easy for the sweep. They're doing my work for them, which is I'm always trying to get them to curl up and bring their head towards their belly button. And so when they naturally do that for me, it makes all these sweeps very easy. So again, that is a defense, but it's a late defense, not an early defense. Here's an example of always distracting my opponent, get them to forget about the head. First I go for the leg, he underhooks, I go for a whizzer, he worries about his arm, pulls it out, and then I go to his head. And then once I have the head control, I hit a sweep off to the side, pass, get on top, and then just kind of float and play a little bit. From here, I'm just going to settle in and work for the north-south guillotine. Again, if they stay on their back, north-south, they turn on their side, regular guillotine. So again, I keep coming back to this idea of sort of having two opposite reactions that I have an answer for. And so for me, from the guard, a lot of what I do is I go for sweeps or off balances, and then they have a choice. They either give me the sweep or they post and usually try to drive back into me. And almost every single time somebody tries to drive back into you, they drive in with their head down. And that's when I attack the guillotine. So you can see right here, we're just playing around. I hit kind of a knee tap pushback, which I do all the time. And sort of lazily just kind of come on top a little bit. He drives back into me. I'm not really fighting it, so I just go back to guard. And then I hit a sweep off to the side. He posts his hand basing, and then he's going to start to come back in a little bit. I'm going to redirect his head over to my left arm, which is the side I tend to guillotine from. And it's a nice simple one. So this is something I do a lot. I don't hunt the guillotines off directly by themselves. I'm usually always trying to off balance my opponent from the guard. Fake sweeps, fake knee taps. I should say fake. Attack knee taps, attack sweeps. But I don't really have to commit so hard to trying to trap their arms and really get the sweep, because if they post their hand, they freeze their body, and if they just stay where they are, I can still come up and attack the neck or come up and wrestle them. But a lot of times they'll post and then they'll drive right back into me, and that usually gives me the guillotine, as you can see here. So here I am playing with one of my white belts, and he's got into side control, he's got the arm trapped, so I'm just going to use a little leg whip position, start to get my arm out from underneath him, start to get on my side. From here, I'm going to kind of roll away, invert, and then go back to guard. And right from that point where they're kind of settling in, maybe leaning away so that it doesn't want to get pulled into guard, I'm going to come up and again hit that knee tap. He's going to base, come back in, and that's when I'm going to attack the guillotine. I end up in half guard where I don't have a great angle of the guillotine, and I have to worry about him posting up on both feet, which will allow him to straighten out his spine and get a better posture, making it harder for me to finish the guillotine. So you can see that I'm stepping on his leg and pinning his leg with my feet to stop that action. Once I feel like I do that, I kind of stretch for a second. That's not working, so I keep my inside leg pinning his leg, use my outside leg to start to whip my body a little bit more out to the side to get a better angle for the choke and finish. So it's really important that if you end up in the half guard that you keep that other leg down so they cannot tripod up and reassert their spinal angle and get a straight spine, making it harder to finish the choke. You're going to see another example of one of my favorite ways to set up the guillotine, and it is again a type of sweep that I'm attempting. Instead of a knee tap or classic butterfly sweep, I'm actually going to stretch his body on one side. In this situation, what that does is if they keep their balance or fall on their side, their head comes down, and it gives me a very easy sweep. This is one of my favorite things to do in the guard, is just to stretch one of the legs out. That will always bring their head down, making it easy for me to catch the guillotine. In this situation, I just let it go and keep playing. Here's another example of me using a sweep or a tilt to get their head down. In this situation, I'm playing from the knee shield. We're kind of playing around a little bit. I'm going to catch his arm on the outside of my knee and tilt it to the outside. This will bring his head down. I go for the guillotine. He does a good job of not getting it, but you see that I get my wrist right under his neck, getting him to back off my hips, and I'm able to sit up and play from there. And this brings up an important concept I tell everybody all the time. The threat of a thing is almost as great as the thing itself. Again, I use the threat of the guillotine to get them to back away, which allows me to come up on knee taps, to wrestle, and to stay away from my hips. So you see, even in this scramble, often because I catch guys with guillotine so much, I'll literally just stick my thumb under their neck and they'll immediately back away and abandon kind of the plans to control my hips. So you can see as we go, it's not working. I stick that in, he postures back, and it gives me a little bit more time to kind of sit up and play from there. So in some of the other videos where I'm rolling with Chris, you may see me put my arms behind my back and think that I'm being cocky or arrogant. That's actually not the case. Chris has exceptional wrist locks and he's very fast with them, so I'm actually hiding my hands. You'll see here again, I threaten the guillotine, he postures up, I go right into the body lock and come on top. Finish the guillotine. It's going to happen again. We're going to go to guard, play around a little bit. He's being really overprotective of his neck, keeping his posture. You can see he leans away a little bit, and that's when I can just come right up into the body lock or the body control and come right on top. And from there we just play a little bit. Here you can see Jeff is working to pass. He's keeping a very upright posture, worried about the guillotine. I believe he starts to stand. I'm going to kind of knee tap him to bring him back down. Go for the guillotine. He's going to sit back rather than try to stay on his knees. He's still keeping a very upright posture. I go for the guillotine one more time. He just concedes and goes to guard. And now I'm just going to play from the top position and work from there. Again, he's trying to pass, but every time he brings his head down, I'm going to feed my forearm under his neck. First, my thumb to get him to back off, and then just a normal shield. But if he were to drive in to my frame on my arm, I would rotate the thumb and start to drive his head over to the far side and hunt the guillotine. I think he knows that, so he's playing back a little bit. It's just kind of an example of how someone will give you the top position. I come in, I'm playing with the legs a little bit. I basically just kind of do a head clinch, head and arm clinch, and I'm just pulling down on his head enough that he's just going to kind of get his balance all completely backwards, and it's just very simple for me to come on top. There's not a real technical thing here. It's just that idea of he's been caught enough guillotines. He's just going to put his body weight back far enough that I can take advantage of it. The situation playing around, I'm kind of rolling away. Sean decides to jump on my back. I keep the roll going through, which allows me to bring my left arm around his neck and right into the guillotine. From here, I'm actually going to not try to finish from the bottom, but I'm going to use it to get back to my feet and come up on top, kind of keeping a cradle position for the pass and then into the north-south guillotine. So again, I can use the pressure on his head to allow me to get back to my feet. Now we're going to go into the area where I probably use the guillotine the most, and that is from the top as a way to control, as a way to pin, and of course as a way to finish the fight. Again, I keep coming back to that catch-22 of having the person kind of choose between two bad decisions. So for me, if the person lays flat on their back, I don't really have the guillotine, I have the north-south guillotine. But in order to escape, they have to get on their side. And when they get on their side, that's when I can attack the guillotine. So it becomes very frustrating for the person on bottom to either have to deal with me pinning them, and when I'm pinning them, I'm often using a lot of weight, a lot of pressure. So even if they don't want to get on their side, eventually the weight and the pressure become too much and they attempt it. And as soon as they attempt it, I'm going to attack the guillotine. And I will often set it up. I'll start attacking it from side control and use it as a method to mount. Here's a prime example of my attack methodology with the guillotine from the top. I have in side control, I'm going to go knee on belly. He's going to start to turn into me. I'm going to switch to the other side. From here, he's going to want to start to turn into me again to get off his back. As soon as he does, I switch my hips, attack the guillotine, come to mount, and finish the guillotine. So again, I'm baiting my opponents to turn on their side, which is the right thing to do. From here, we're just playing around a little bit. He's going to come around. I'm going to put him into the single leg X position. I'm going to drag the leg across, try to come up into a leg drag. He's going to lay back. I'm going to play around a little bit. I'm going to go to a leg fold. I'm trying to get him on his side to attack, but he's keeping his shoulders on the mat. So I just go to mount. He bumps me off. He goes to his own payback single leg X position. Does a good job. I clear the foot. I'm going to come into a position I really like to attack the guillotine from, where I float on their shins. Going to work here, try to clear. He's going to get me in half guard, so I'm going to keep my legs locked and try to settle my weight on the side to get him on his side so I can lock the choke better. From here, I'm going to adjust a little bit if I can, try to tighten it up. It's really important that I'm always tightening the guillotine when I can. So I'm always crunching his body more into position. You'll see this in a second. I go clear my leg, go to knee on belly, crunched him in, see how I did there, mount, and then finished. From here, you're going to see us play around a little bit, and we're going to come up into the dog fight position. This is actually one of my favorite places to attack the guillotine from. As soon as we come up, I'm going to snap him down onto his side after I get the guillotine. Again, I want him on his side to finish the guillotine. I can tighten it up a little bit, step right to mount, and then I'm going to finish. This is actually just an example of the leg catch, front headlock takedown I like to do, just done from the knees. From here, I keep him on his side. I start to lock, step over, and then he's doing a good job of staying on his side. I've got to get him flat on his back for the finish from mount. So I'm just going to keep driving my right knee down, try to pushing into his hips with my foot, and I get the finish. I tell my students all the time, there is no hell without hope. So I'm always giving my opponents a choice. From side control, my opponent has two choices: stay on his back, giving me the pin, or try to escape by getting on his side. When he gets on his side, I have access to the guillotine. Once I have access to the guillotine, there's a further choice situation he has to deal with. He can either try to go to his back again to avoid the guillotine, which again gives me the pin or access to mount, or he can try to turn into me. If he keeps turning into me, I simply am going to move back and put him into guard. So we have a couple choices: stay pinned, or turn into me. And when he turns into me, I have the guillotine. From the guillotine position, stay there, lay on his back, or come on top and into my guard. It's important that if he stays on his side, that I'm able to keep putting pressure into the choke in his head. Otherwise, he will be comfortable there. It's also important that when I do have side control, I put a lot of pressure into him so that he wants to turn on his side. So part of the threat has to be an understanding of pressure, both from the pinning position and when he turns on his side, and I have the guillotine, so I'm always tightening, putting my weight on him. You're going to see my opponent escape. He's going to bring his knee in and get to a kind of a half butterfly hook. I'm going to immediately attack the neck because he got on his side. I'm very comfortable in this position, so I'm not that concerned. I can float here and keep the head. This is actually how I developed this top game. Was training with a friend who had a very good butterfly. And I'm using his neck not only as a threat, but to keep his body crunched. This limits the power of that butterfly hook. If he's not able to put his head on the mat, he doesn't have much sweeping potential. I'm keeping my left knee on the mat and keeping my weight to the side where I can tighten it. If he does try to sweep me, I can actually fold his leg inside and go to kind of a folding pass with the guillotine hold. But in this situation, I'll start to work my body back on top of his, and I'll feel pretty comfortable. Again, I don't want him sliding his right leg out underneath my leg, in which case he can start to take my back. So I'm keeping that leg there. But from here, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm just going to keep working to tighten it up and go from there. He does a good job here of putting me into half guard, which is actually going to cause me more problems because now I can't actually sit back and put him in guard if he comes on top. If he were to come on top, he could actually transition his hips to the other side and be safe from the guillotine. So I'm going to be posting on his hip with my right hand and trying to tighten the guillotine. I'm a little bit concerned at this point. So I'm going to have to time it for when he does come on top to try to free my leg. Going to mount now is also more difficult because I can't get my leg free. So I'm just kind of waiting, trying to wedge his leg a little bit. And you're going to see him try to come on top. I'll pull my leg out quick and go to guard. You're going to see another example here of the knee tap I love so much. I've got the underhook, I knee tap, I immediately pull him on his side and attack the guillotine. Notice how I do a hip switch. I like to really sit on my hips so I can get my arms deeper and get more weight on his head. So that's really important. I don't like to stay on my knees. And this also means I can put him in guard if he were to come on top. I pull him a little bit more on his side for more weight on his head, more pressure, and more tightness of the choke. I'm keeping my hips on the mat just to be nice. But right now, I've got him in that choice I talked about. He's either going to come on top or I'm going to step over in a second. So right now, we're going to wait and see what he does. I'm tightening the choke with my hand. He's going to come on top, and I scoot back and finish the choke. You're going to see another example of the choice I talk about. Often when I go for the guillotine, if they defend too much with their hands, it means I have complete access to their back. So you're going to see attack the guillotine. He's going to defend. I'm going to switch to the back and go to the control. So his arms are no longer blocking me. We're going to go over another example of this choice I'm always talking about. I'm going to come out, get the underhook, kind of hit a leg pull with my bottom leg, come on top. I'm looking for the leg fold position. He's keeping his legs tight, so I'm just going to kind of pin his legs, climb to mount, but I'm keeping him on his side. So I'm using that underhook, snap him on his side, catch the guillotine. Now I'm going to sit off to the side onto my hip. And again, this is that waiting position where he's either going to come on top or I can go back to mount. Now what I'm doing from this position is working my hand in deeper, tightening my hand. And from here I'm going to step over. He's trying to block me, but I'm just going to slowly work over and immediately flatten him out, get the choke. I'm going to hit again another little leg tap, come on top, work from here, going to step to the side, going to see if he wants to turn in. When he does, I'm going to attack the guillotine. So again, I'm kind of putting him in position here. I'm going to keep tightening up a little bit, being kind of lazy, just sitting on the mat. So I want to snap him in a little bit more, then sit back again to see if he's going to come on top. So he decides to come to his knees, kind of being lazy. I'll throw the one leg over, but I really need my other leg in, so I'll scoot back, put my leg in. He postures both feet up, so I'm not going to be able to finish very easily from here, so I get the legs in, and I'm just going to roll him over using the guillotine to sweep, and then mount, and then settle in and get the choke. You're going to see one of my favorite ways to attack the guillotine and also to mount. When I come in here to head and arm clinch, he's going to worry about the guillotine. Me pulling his head down, so he's just going to lay back, give me the top position. I'm going to work to pass. I'm going to back step here into side control. He's going to stay on his side, so I'm just going to kind of wait to see if he turns in. When he turns in, I'm going to fold his legs to the other side, putting him on his side, and attack the guillotine, and then re-flatten him out. So Erkan is starting to get a good guillotine, but his mistake here is when he goes for the guillotine, he stays on his knees and doesn't switch his hips. This means, one, I don't have to worry about coming on top and walking into this guard. It also means he can't get much weight on my neck to put thread into me, and he can't get his arm very far around my neck, so I'm pretty comfortable here. And actually, because he's got his knees there, I'm able to now hook one of his legs and put him into half guard. And from here, as I come to my knees, since he hasn't switched his hip, there's no weight on my head. As I come to my knees, I'm actually going to be able to pull my head out. So what he needs to do is switch on his hips to have that better weight, better control, and the threat of being able to go back to guard as well. So we're going to explore a little more deeply this bad choices idea from the top. So again, I'm going to be on side, and I'm going to be pinning my opponent, or I'm going to be giving them the space or putting enough pressure on them where they want to turn into me and turn on their side. And that's when I attack the guillotine. So again, it's a beautiful, miserable dilemma. They either let me pin them or they go for the guillotine. Now, in order to really get good at this, you need to develop a very heavy pinning position with a lot of pressure, so the guy isn't just comfortable to lay on his back, but is desperate to get on his side, and then you attack the guillotine. His defense is either to come on top, in which case I can put him in a guard, stay on his side, in which case I can step over to mount, or go back to his back and get back into that hell of the pinning position. So again, because I threaten guillotines so much, guys will keep their head back and their body away from me a little bit, which allows me to come up into shooting positions. Why a lot of my takedowns from the butterfly are actually forward and not pulling them back or sweeping them off to the side. From here, I'm going to come up, get my leg in, and he's going to bring his head down, catch the guillotine. I'm going to use it as a roll, and then we're going to come on top. He's going to turtle for a second. Eventually, we transition into side control. My arm is over his head. I'm facing his legs in my position I like to attack the guillotine from. I'm going to mess around as if for a kimura, and as soon as he feels that, he's going to turn into me to try to hide his arm, and that's when I go to the neck and the guillotine. And then I'm just going to throw my leg over, fall back to guard, and then finish the choke. From here, you're going to see that dilemma of does he stay on his back or does he turn on his side? He stays on his back. I'm hunting north-south guillotines, maybe kimuras. I transition side. He immediately turns on his side. I have the guillotine. I'm playing around here a little bit, tightening up. He's messing with my legs. I'm going to switch out of that, step over, and then finish the guillotine. Here's a position I use a lot where I staple one of his legs from the mount, sort of almost a quarter guard situation to try to encourage him on his side. I'm also trying to shove his other shoulder. Eventually he turns on his side, I catch the guillotine, step over, and I'm actually just going to lay back and finish from the guard. But that staple to encourage his hips to turn and then to encourage his shoulders to turn. Going to work a sweep coming up on top, start to work a pass, kind of into a knee shield position a little bit. I'm going to walk him back to the center because I mostly guillotine with my left arm, so I'm trying to get him turned to that side. He's doing a good job not letting me do that. From here, I'm starting to mount. I've got my arm around his neck already, and now I'm going to switch off to the far side because I want to get him on his side so I can really lock the choke in. I'm going to keep the knee in to kind of give him the false sense that he can turn in. That's not what I'm setting up. Make him work for it. So now he's turning in more. I've got the choke, step over. He's got the knee in, but I don't really care. Next section, there's not a guillotine, but it's the idea that the threat of the guillotine is often going to give me other things. So you're going to see me pass to mount, and then I'm actually going to lead off to the side. It's going to give him the sense that maybe he can roll me. So I'm putting my weight off to the side, but I'm actually pretty comfortable. As soon as he turns in, I'm actually trying to shelve his arm. So that's a position I really like to use. So from here, he's going to turn in. I'm going to catch the arm, come back up, and I'm in this position. I fake the guillotine, lays back, which allows me to pin his arm. That's something you'll see that I use a lot. Again, I go here, but instead of doing the guillotine, he's kind of keeping his head in position. I'm just going to step over and do a jerk. Next Next clip is a good example of one of the realities is often when people escape positions and they turn back into you, they're going to turn back into you with their head down to try to control your body. So often as soon as somebody escapes and turns into me, I go right into the guillotine attack. Here I'm going to use the chin strap and just sweep him over. One of the main things I look to do from the top is often to isolate arms. Usually I will pin an arm with a knee from side control or half guard even. In this situation, you're going to see me do it. I'm able to do it a lot because I'm always looking for a strong crossface or guillotine control, so people will block my arm in an attempt to stop those things. And from when they do, as you can see here, I'm just going to shoot my knee through, pin the arm, and often that allows me to go right back to the guillotine head control I wanted in the first place, or wrist lock. You're going to see Jeff here trying to play like a daily Hiva. I'm going to keep the pressure forward, and then I'm going to high back step out of this and just lay to the side. You see, forces him on his side. I'm going to attempt the guillotine, but he's going to lay onto his back. And then I'm just going to start keeping his hips twisted and work out of this position. So again, from here, I'm just waiting for him to turn on his side. If he doesn't, he's pinning himself. He turns there. Go for the guillotine, but let it go. I transition to mount. Then I'm just going to float a little bit on top. I keep playing with, see if I can get him on his side. Playing here at the hands a little wrist lock. He's trying to turn to attack my legs. Here, again, I go right to the guillotine when he's on his side. That's always our recurring theme. I switch again, keeping weight on his legs to keep him on his side. I pass. Now he's got a choice. He's going to lay back, or he's going to try to come all the way to his knees. From here, I'm going to go to my shin guard guillotine. I'm going to work to pass. I'm going to keep a left hand tie clinch on his neck as he does. It's going to allow me to keep the space away from him so that I can come back up to my knees. As soon as I do, I right underhook, and my left tie clinch switches into the guillotine position. I have him on his side, step over, and there's something I do right there that I do a lot of times when guys are trying to keep their legs up to block me. Instead of trying to clear the whole leg, I'll step over, plant my foot in their hip, and use that to stretch their leg down and mount. So in this one, you're going to see me transition to one of my favorite positions. He gets on his side rather than just go to the guillotine like I normally do. I'm actually going to step over his top leg into what I call leg fold position. And I'm keeping my arm in front of his neck. This is to stop him going to his knees and starting to maybe even hunt legs and going into like honey hole positions and things like this. I'm not actually that afraid of it as a lot of people are, because if they do start to do that, I go into the guillotine, as you see here. So a lot of people will say, you know, don't do that position unless you're really controlling their head or blocking their head. But for me, it's not that big a deal because, again, I'm not abandoning the head. I'm just switching from cross-face control to guillotine control, which again stops them from really effectively attacking my legs, because they're going to need to eventually stretch to do that. When I get the guillotine, I don't really have a great angle for it, and again, you see that I'm really stepping on that inside leg to stop him from posturing up or trying to cut his knee free. Here I play around a little bit, try to maybe feed my foot in for a butterfly hook, but eventually I just abandon the situation. Use my free leg, since my inside leg is pinning him, use my free leg to start to kick myself out for a better angle. You're going to see me use the guillotine to escape. So Erkan's going to come in. He's actually going to try to guillotine me from the top, but again, not switch his hips. And when he does, I'm just going to move my body out a little bit so I can get my arm around his neck, get the chin strap, and I'm going to use the chin strap to roll him over. So just whip my legs, come on top, and then sit through and finish. Here's a situation where Erkan does a really good job on everything. He's got his hips switched. He's working here. I'm kind of stuck, so I can't come on top. He does switch back to his knees, and that gives me a little bit of chance to put my head more on the mat, so that when he mounts, he's not really got the crunch that he needs. He's doing a good job, but I'm going to pull his head down, drive my head to the mat, and escape the guillotine. So I think if he had tightened it more before mounting, he would have been better off. Here I am with Sven, who's So he's very strong, and he's good at coming up on the legs. So I'm really driving into him, keeping the pressure. I want him committed, over-committing to coming over to hunt for my leg. I really want him feeling like this is something I'm trying to stop. And so as soon as I do, as soon as he gets far enough, I'm going to have the guillotine a good amount. One thing you notice, I did not switch my hips there. I don't always have to. I've worked on this a lot. So I can usually tighten it up without switching the hips, especially if they get on their side enough. So again, use the pin. You really go for the pin. That's the only way you're going to have the person really commit getting on their side enough. Here's another example of me making my opponent uncomfortable to get him to turn on his side. So he has actually his right arm blocking my hip. So what I've been doing is really smashing that arm and walking it up above his head to put strain on his shoulder. And driving my weight into his far shoulder as much as possible to get him to really explode on his side. Attack the guillotine, but he's actually going to lay back. And as soon as he does, I'm going to start working to pin that arm and put a weight in again. So he knows, he turns again, and I'm just going to keep hunting that guillotine. Again, you're going to see me using my knee to pin the arms. I use this a lot against strong people and also to encourage them to turn on their side because they want to pull that arm back underneath them. So this is, you're going to see him kind of turn into me for a second to try to get that arm in and explode. That's, again, I'm keeping that pressure. So I'm always looking to pin their arms with my knees. So I'm a big pressure guy. We'll be releasing a DVD on that. But one of the things about pressure is it's got to be constant. So I'm constantly, allowing him to explode on his side, attacking the guillotine. And then when he goes back, I'm putting a lot of pressure into him, a lot of strain on his shoulder, a lot of strain on the near side shoulders to exhaust him. You can see he's again so tired I can actually start pulling him on his side. But out of desperation, he keeps going, and then eventually I get the finish. In this next section, I'm going to talk about how I use the guillotine to pass. One thing I tell my students all the time is if you're passing the guard, you pass the guard you want to pass, not the guard player wants to play. So I will often force a kind of a hooks type guard, which does a few things. It either forces him to sit up into me to try to play the guard, or it causes him to try to lift me. And when he lifts me, I'm able to post on my hands, bring my body weight forward, and attack the guillotine. And then I have to do my leg work to get around his leg. But from that position, I'm able to control his head and keep him crunched up. And then it's just a matter of keeping my balance and using my legs to get around his legs. And one thing that's very important to understand is from this position, I need to control his head to stop him, again, elevating his hips and sweeping me, or also shooting a leg through and bringing it around my hips so that he can go into leg lock positions. So again, by keeping his head crunched with the guillotine and off the mat, I kill his bridging power, I kill his lifting power with his hips, and I kill the ability to go to leg lock position. So it's actually safer than it looks. Often at this point, I'm going to be working to either collapse, fold his legs to the side, or to work my way over his legs. It's very hard for him to stop me doing both options. He's either going to give me the fold, or he's going to give me the ability to go straight to mount. Another important thing to get good at is if you're going to play this style of passing, is when you go for the guillotine, control it with just one arm. In this case, it's usually my left arm. I want to keep my right hand free as a base, because what I don't want to do is have him sweep me to the side opposite his head. In that situation, it's going to be hard to finish the guillotine. He's probably going to be able to escape. I don't mind if he sweeps me to the side that I have the guillotine on, because that's the very powerful position to finish it from the guard. So I use my, in this case, my right hand to keep my base and stop him sweeping me that way. Keep my left arm around his neck and keep it tightening and working from there. In this clip, you see me force the butterfly guard, and I keep my head buried in the center, stopping Aircon from pushing it off to the side here, frustrating him on that. I put my weight into him because I actually want him to kick me away and sit up, and the moment he does, I attack the guillotine. From here, I'm going to drive my body weight forward, post on my right hand, and now I'm going to start to work around his legs. From here, it's just a matter of keeping my balance and working the legs up, trying to step over his shin, playing around a little bit, and eventually I settle and get the submission. In this clip, I'm going to hit a little trip takedown, and his instinct is to immediately sit back up, and I catch the guillotine front headlock position. One thing I do is to stop people putting me in half guard is I'll actually curl my foot tight to my butt, so that basically they'll just wrap around my knee, but my foot will still be free, so it's not really a problem I can kick out of the half guard. Also, another thing I tend to do is I'll actually put my weight, in this case, to my left side a little bit, which makes people feel like I'm going to drop off to side control, and so they'll often kind of abandon their leg position, allowing me to step over to mount. So that's something I'll kind of go back and forth. I'll attempt for the mount. If they keep their legs kind of curled, I'll back step to side control. If they let their legs relax in anticipation of dealing from side control, I'll step back to mount. In this situation, Jeff shoots through for a leg lock position, but my knee is free, so I'm not that worried. I actually attack his bottom leg to get him to abandon the leg lock and come up into sort of this leg drag, vaporizer, spine twist position that I like to use a lot. From here, I'm going to sit off to the side and start to walk his hips back towards me. I'm trying to twist his spine to encourage him to get on his side to attack the guillotine. But from here, it's an easy way to step out. I control. I'm going to push the leg down to encourage him to turn on his side, anticipating the mount, and try to block me. And then I catch the guillotine. I'm going to let go, step up on top, get the fold. Again, come right over, attacking the guillotine, and step over the shin. One thing as you're learning this kind of floating guillotine position that will happen occasionally to you is you'll get swept directly overhead onto your back. So what you have to master is learning how to keep control of the neck, keep control of the chin specifically, so even if you land there, you're going to be able to turn back onto your side and come back on top. So this is why it's important to be able to switch from the guillotine to the chin strap back and forth as a control method. Here I'm going to come in, do another little trip, and take a shank down. Eventually I'm going to step back in and force the butterfly guard. One thing I like to do is actually switch my hips off to the side, which allows me to attack the guillotine. A lot of times guys will go to this sort of holding the foot position, which I like to play a lot too, but I'm pretty comfortable playing from there. As long as I control the guillotine, it's hard for them to do the sweep from there, and eventually I just clear the wrist off my foot, and I play from here. I'm going to let go of the guillotine for a while, thread the legs on my arm, play from here, re-attack the guillotine, and I'm going to switch my hips and start working for the control. I'm just going to let go from there. One of my favorite ways to set up the guillotine for mount is to give the person my foot into kind of a quarter guard position. This ensures that they get on their side, making it again easy for me to attack the guillotine. But another thing I'll do from that same position is I'll actually wait for them to underhook me with their far side arm, and I'll step up into shelve it, kind of into a beginning of an omoplata situation. I'd already done it to this guy a couple times before, so you see him realize his mistake and pull his arm back. So instead he goes under my leg and tries to go into a deep half position. You can see I keep his leg twisted so he can't turn back into me for the deep half. Eventually I just let it go and let him turn in, and he tries to use it as a sweep to come up, and as soon as, of course, he elevates his head a little bit, I attack the guillotine. I keep his right leg stretched with my left foot so that killing the power of the left butterfly hook he has, and eventually I just step over that and right to mount and finish the guillotine. I don't generally encourage basing your jiu-jitsu on having attributes, but if you are going to play this style of game, this top game of controlling the head and working around hooks guards, one thing I say that does help is to have hip flexibility, so work on that. A lot of times guys are trying to lift or stretch my legs, and I have really good hip flexibility, so I'm able to deal with that. So if that's not something you have and you want to play this game, it's something you should work on. You can see how important it is for me to stable one of his legs whenever I'm dealing with a hook, a butterfly hook. And not only do I stable the legs, I try to keep them as spread as possible to really kill the power. It's not just enough to just pin his leg. So you can see how wide I'm trying to keep his legs apart to really limit the ability for him to get on his side and make it easier for me to pass. Basically, there are two ways to escape mount. You're either going to upa or you're going to try to do a knee elbow escape. It's very hard to upa me, so a lot of people will try to go to the knee elbow escape. And what that means is they have to actually get on their side to have an effective knee elbow escape. And in that situation, I attack the guillotine. So they either have to give me the guillotine or try to escape it by putting their back on the mat again, giving me the mount. But in this situation, I let Erkan get his knee through, and he goes again to that sort of half butterfly holding the leg position. One of the reasons I find the guillotine so effective from the top against modern guards is because a lot of the modern guard game involves the people using their arms low. They could reach for the legs, they reach for the hips, they're playing very low with their hands. And anytime their arms aren't protecting their neck, I can basically drive my weight forward and catch the guillotine. And then they either have to bring their hands back up to defend the guillotine, which basically takes away the guard game they had planned. I mentioned before that using the guillotine to pass, it's okay if the person sweeps you overhead because you can keep the guillotine chin strap and either come back to top or simply turn to your side and put him into guard, which you can see I do here with Georg. Georg is going to go for a kataguruma. I'm going to step out to the side here and immediately attack the neck. From here I have an underhook, and I'm just going to drive into him. He's going to lay back. I'm going to hit the forward roll right into the guard, tighten it up, sit back, and get the shin guard guillotine. In this situation, I'm keeping Jeff's knees pinned to the side to keep him on his side to do some attacks. Dragging the arm across because I want him on his elbow. I really want the 2-on-1, that's what I'm playing with, but he's got his elbow actually too far to his side, so I can't reach around for it. I could drive him onto his back because of that, but instead I'm just going to attack the guillotine. I'm going to drive my weight into him, he's going to lift me, he's going to keep his knees in, I keep my weight forward, and I'm going to step on his hip again, just like I've talked about in the past, finish the guillotine. Here, playing around a little bit more, I'm going to go into his guard. Here, he's sitting up, he's going to bring his head forward, basically just giving me the guillotine. I'm going to let go, play around a little bit, step back, he's going to go to kind of a spider guard position. I'm going to clear out of that, step over, do my one knee up, one knee down, which allows me to kind of work towards his head. It feels like people could sweep me from there, but it gives me access to the neck. I'm going to catch the neck, start sitting off to the side. He's still going to be trying to elevate me, but it's not going to work. I'm going to actually shoot my shin inside, fall to the side to allow me to free out a half guard, and sit back to finish the guillotine from the guard. From here, we're going to play a little bit guard, try for the tripod sweep, sit back to the daily of the back take. Here, going to come up, and since he's sitting up, I immediately catch the guillotine. I'll let it go. He'll spin out, try to go for a leg lock. From here, I'm going to step into the guard again, keeping control of his head to stop him lifting me with his legs. Stop and put him ahead on the mat. From here, I'm waiting for him to bring me forward. I'm going to attack the guillotine when he brings me forward. As soon as he does, I'm going to cross my feet to stop him using his legs a little bit more. Then, as he tries to lift me, I don't think we get the mount, so I'll just fold his legs to the side. Here's another good example of people using their arms to go to my legs, give me access to the neck. So from here, he's going to try to go to sort of a deep half position. I'm going to base on the far side, so he can't get that. So eventually he's going to try to turn in. When he turns in, again, I'm going to just attack the neck. You can see his arms are basically trapped. From here, I could play, go to the mount, but I'm not really committed to this, so I'm just playing. I'm going to sit off. He's going to try to lift his leg. It's not working, and then we just resettle. Jeff is going to start out in the double shin position, trying to sweep me, and then she's going to switch to the 7 guard. So I'm keeping my knee down. This is where the hip flexibility comes in. I really want to keep my knee on the ground so he doesn't take my back. And then you're going to see he's going to get the leg in, so I know I'm in trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and catch the guillotine, allow the roll, and then turn in and get him on his side. And so basically I've effectively passed the guard here. Jeff is playing half guard. You're going to see him bring his head in. I'm going to scare him off with the guillotine. Let's start getting him to back away, which allows me to come up. I'm going to start to pass. I'm going to step out here. He's going to sit up. I'm going to attack the guillotine. He's going to lay back. I'm going to fold his legs as I do this to get him on his side, allowing me to re-attack the guillotine and go right to mount. Again, this is really important. When I'm floating here, keeping the guillotine or attacking the guillotine, if it's not working, or even if it is, I'm usually looking to fold his legs to the guillotine side, which will allow me to tighten up the choke and get deeper around the neck. If he tries to keep me in the center, I can just step to mount. So again, I'm going to reiterate this catch-22 of the choice between the escaping and running into the guillotine or pinning themselves. You always want to put your opponent into this idea of they run into a threat when they try to escape, or staying in a high-pressure pin situation. You need to have both. So I'm going to show some situations where my opponents are starting to escape. I threaten the guillotine, and they put themselves back into a pinning position. I also use this from the guard too, so when a person is attempting to pass guard and bring themselves towards my hips, I'll threaten the guillotine to get them to back off and thus stop the guard pass. So I'm going to leg fold Jeff and pressure his head to twist his spine to encourage him to turn on his side. He doesn't, so I step back in the middle. This time I'm just going to back step to maybe give him more confidence to turn on his side. He does. I attack the guillotine, but he goes right back to his back. And then I'm just going to step to mount. Here I'm going to do a big back step out of Jeff's guard. Most of the time people will turn in to avoid being pinned, and as soon as they do, my hand will come around the neck, so I don't really mind just falling off to the side. From here I'm going to control the leg, start tightening up the neck, but I'm just going to let him put himself back on his back and go right to knee on belly. He turns in, and I'll just float back on top. I'll hunt the guillotine, and he'll just lay back on his back again. From here, I'm just going to drive into his guard, kind of do a leg fold, leg slide pass. He's sort of trying to go to like an X guard or something here. Step over, hunt the guillotine. He's going to immediately flatten himself on the back, and I get the pin. So I've been training since 2000, and I actually don't have a whole lot of video of me competing or rolling. It's just not something I've collected. I have some, and I'll be using it for other videos like this, but hopefully you can take something away from this to see how I incorporate the guillotine in all aspects of my game, whether it's pinning, sweeping, taking down, passing, and of course submitting and transitions. Again, the thing I want you guys to take away is always this dilemma of using a high-pressure game to make them choose between postures. They're either going to posture into you with their head down, or they're going to posture away from you with their head back. Whether it's from the top or the bottom, you're going to be able to attack either the body or the head. So from the top, I'm pinning, or I'm attacking the guillotine. From the guard, I'm submitting, or I'm sweeping. And from standing, I'm front headlocking, or I'm attacking the legs and the hips. If you want to learn more about how I do all this, I do have the Guillotine Code DVD that I will leave a link for, and you guys can check it out and hopefully make this a big part of your game.